All right, Tucker, we are live. Lineup Legends Week 7 recap. Let's go. How are you doing today?
I've had better weeks.
You have.
I maybe had like two correct takes from last week, and the rest was not so good. But hey, you had a really good week in terms of takes and players you thought you were going to do well. So.
If we had any regular viewers, you'd be in a lot of trouble right now. But lucky for you, you're getting bailed out because we don't have any viewers. So no one can really hold you accountable, and no one except me is going to call you out on it. So it's going to be a long show for you today, but I'm excited for it.
Hey, I made the takes. I'll take the heat. It's good. It's good.
At least you're willing to fall on your own sword, and I respect that. So, all right, let's go ahead and kick it off with the Thursday night football game. We had the Giants and the Eagles. Any big takeaways from this game, Tucker?
Not really. Sterling Shepard is a player again, which is something to keep an eye on. I guess Devontae Freeman got hurt, so keep an eye out for Wayne Gallman. And Travis Fulgham is still pretty good.
Yeah, I was texting you, chirping you about Travis Fulgham early in the game, laughing at his stats, and he comes up with just a fine stat line: five catches for 73 yards on 11 targets. Woo! Not very efficient, but we'll take it. I'm still out on Fulgham, by the way. Like I'm standing by that. I don't want
the last 3 games, 10+ targets. Hard to argue with that, even on a bad team.
That's fine.
It's Jamison Crowder-esque. If he produces, he produces.
Yeah, I think Alshon coming back is just gonna take. I think Fulgham's fine to roster, but yeah, I don't think he's like this breakout. Like, oh my gosh, I gotta have him guy. I think he's gonna be worth rostering for bye weeks if you need a flex. That's all I think about him.
Interesting. So I do see Alshon as like a potential AJ Green, where we're just kind of sitting here. 2019 AJ Green, where we're just kind of sitting here.
I was about to say AJ Green's balling now.
So. Where we're just sitting here all year waiting for him to come back, and he never does. Like I know he's getting closer to playing. I do, but what if he comes back and he just gets re-injured immediately? His history is really bad. And I mean, 2 years younger than AJ Green, and he's right there behind him in terms of injuries.
Yeah, it's a fair take. And only time will tell. But with Deshaun Jackson hurt, I think Alshon Jeffrey is worth rostering because, I mean, he was expected back up. He's dealing with another injury now. So, like, when they're talking about him coming back, which I don't even know if it'll be this week, go grab him just to see. But I'm with you. This could easily be one of those situations. I'm not as high on Alshon as I am skeptical that Fulgham can maintain this production when Alshon comes back, when Goddard comes back after the bye, when Zach Ertz inevitably eventually comes back. I'm not seeing it. So, again, 11 targets, that's insane, worth rostering, but I think this is going to be a short-lived thing.
I've been wrong about a lot of predictions. I think I'm right about this one. Travis Fulgham is the guy in Philadelphia, and I think he'll maintain that status.
Okay, what wide receiver 2 rest of the way? Wide receiver 3? Where do you have him rest of the season?
What do I have him as?
Because you had Claypool as a wide receiver 1, so I'm just trying to gauge where you're at with Fulgham.
I think I'm at a high-end wide receiver 3 for Fulgham.
Okay. All right. If you were going to go wide receiver
potential for wide receiver 2 every week.
Okay, well, I was going to say if you're going to go wide receiver 2, I'd push back a little bit on that.
Potential. It's a potential, but I've got him ranked as a wide receiver 3.
Wide receiver 3, I'm okay with that take. I'm not going to give you any flack for that. Time will tell. I'm out on him, but he's a fine bye week fill-in. Nothing else I'm super excited to talk about for this game. Daniel Jones had that sick run, only to get tackled short of the end zone. What?
I just laughed.
Oh, sorry. I thought you said what run. I don't know why I heard that.
I've seen the run. I've seen the run.
Also, on the Giants side of the ball, dude, I'm not falling for Sterling Shepard. Like, between him, Golden Tate, and Darius Slayton, I don't think that any of them are going to be able to consistently put up numbers. The only one I really like is Darius Slayton just because he has the upside every week to go for an 80-yard bomb. But with Shepard back, who knows if he even gets as much volume to sustain that. I'm out on just this whole receiving core. Wayne Gallman's worth a look depending on how long Freeman's out. But yeah, that's what I'd say.
Yeah, I think I agree with that for sure. Sterling Shepard is worth rostering, I think, just based on what he got his first game back. But outside of that, no, I don't really want any piece of this Giants offense, minus maybe Wayne Gallman just because of receptions. If you're pretty needy.
Sure. Okay. Well, we got a lot of games to get through, so unfortunately, we spend a little too much time on probably one of the least exciting ones. Let's go ahead and go to one of the most exciting. Seahawks Cardinals. This game was absolutely bonkers. I'm so happy the Cardinals won because I thought this was just going to be yet another one of those games where Seattle kind of catches a break late in the game and wins it. Kind of thought that was the case with the Kyler Murray pick right after the Russ pick, but Arizona squeaks this one out. What did you think about this game, and what were your biggest fantasy takeaways?
So yeah, this was one of those games. I think we talked about it beforehand, where like Russell Wilson finds a way to win these. It doesn't look likely, but he finds a way, and he didn't this go around. So that's very interesting. Big fantasy takeaways. Kyler Murray's insane. I was watching him and I was like, this looks like just a more agile Russell Wilson. They look like similar players, and he looked very, very good. We could talk about Tyler Lockett, I guess, where he's scoring a 50 bomb, I guess, in fantasy. I'm kind of teetering on the edge of where to put him. Is he a wide receiver one rest of the season, you think?
Lockett, it's just tough because Metcalf is normally going to see more production there than he did this past. I think, in my opinion, Lockett is always going to be a wide receiver 2, a high-end wide receiver 2 with every week wide receiver 1 top 5 upside, just with Russell throwing in the ball. I just hesitate to put him in that every week top 12 receiver category just because of the consistency. He doesn't really have that consistency. He had that monster game early in the season, had a dud right after it, blows up again here in this spot. I think he's probably in the 12 to 15 range for me. He's just got one of the highest ceilings among any receiver in fantasy. It's just that I would want a little more consistency to put him up there with the guys like, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins, all those guys. So what do you think about that? Where does he sit in your rankings?
Yeah, 15 receptions, 200 yards, 3 touchdowns. Clearly, a huge game, but that's not sustainable, right? We know that much. I do think he's probably high-end wide receiver 2, potentially wide receiver 1 at the back end. I think do you sell high this week on Tyler Lockett since he had such a good game, or do you just hold on to him and keep playing him?
That's a tough one. I think, honestly, given that he's got the potential to win you weeks every single week, the way Russell Wilson is playing, and he does also have the potential to, hurt you in a given week. But it depends on what you can get. I'm always open to selling players depending on what you can get. And right now, you could probably get a king's ransom for Tyler Lockett. If someone wants to overpay for him, yeah, go ahead and deal him. But obviously, you can't expect this every week. But I want shares of Seattle's offense. I want shares of the primary target for the league's MVP right now. So I'm not rushing out to sell him. Why would you? But if someone's coming to you with a monster offer, why not?
Right. I would say I think only if you're super running back needy do you do that, and you definitely go for one of those top 3-4 running backs. So DeAndre Hopkins gets 10 receptions for 103 yards on 12 targets. Obviously a great game. Then on the running side of the ball, we have Chris Carson go down late in the game. We have Kenyon Drake go down late in the game. Are you going out and getting Carlos Hyde? Are you going out and getting the other guy, Chase Edmonds? I couldn't think of his name for whatever reason.
Yeah, I think so. Chase Edmonds should already be rostered. If he's not, spend every last dollar you have and fab on him. But I think Carlos Hyde also tweaked something too, so it could be DJ Dallas that gets the look. So that's one of those things that we're gonna have to keep an eye on throughout the week to see. I hear Chris Carson's definitely going to be out, gonna miss a little bit of time. So keep an eye on Carlos Hyde because DJ Dallas could be a good little scoop up and play for maybe a week or two. But yeah, that'll be one to keep an eye on. But Chase Edmonds, man, he could be a league winner. Kenny Drake figures to miss. I believe it was, he's going to miss at least a few weeks from what I read. So I don't believe it's season ending, but Chase Edmonds is going to be one of those guys that if you have him on your roster, he could send you on a playoff run.
Right. Yeah. Thankfully, what I've seen on Kenyon Drake is MRI negative for any breaks or tears or anything like that. But Chase Edmonds is going to be good for a couple of weeks for sure.
How you feeling after? We're looking pretty smart after putting Kyler Murray in both of our DFS lineups, aren't we?
Oh yeah, he had a great week. I feel great about Kyler Murray. He's the number one fantasy scorer over 7 weeks. So
yeah,
he's looking like a great player moving forward for sure.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. By the way, Christian Kirk was one of my DFS picks.
I was about to say, we would be remiss if we did not mention Christian Kirk for just a second.
If anyone reads my upside column on Fantasy Pros. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the Tennessee Titans taking on the Pittsburgh Deontay Johnsons. Let's freaking go, dude. I was so tired of the talk about, oh man, no, Claypool's the wide receiver one. When Deontay Johnson gets back, like, he takes a backseat to Claypool. Like, chill. I read so many fantasy columns, people talking about how Deontay Johnson is like a wide receiver 4 with like a wide receiver 2 upside. Like, dude, 24 targets in the 2 games that he was fully healthy for. Like, they're not going to just change his role based on Claypool's breakout. What they likely would do is take away some of James Washington's snaps to get Claypool more involved, which is exactly what happened. Deontay Johnson absolutely eats, gets another 15 targets, 9 catches, 80 yards, 2 touchdowns. Like, oh my gosh, this one was so validating for me because I traded away Jamison Crowder in a deal for Deontay. And right after that was when Crowder had like the 25-point week. I was regretting it. I was like, man, did I get cute here? But no, this proved what I believed to be true. And what I said on this show was true, that Deontay Johnson is the wide receiver 1 on this team and that he's the guy to own on the Steelers. And this is just very exciting for me, Tucker. And Claypool with 0.8 fantasy points just really hammers it home for me. I'm going to chalk this one up as a W. How do you want to take this? How are you feeling watching the game, seeing Johnson just blow up?
The entire time I was just like, yeah, I'm going to hear it from Steven for this one. That's all I could think. I just wanted to go to a different game. I really did, because I didn't have any fantasy players involved, because I never got any shares of Claypool, because I had spent all my fab already on Benny Snell. But I really just wanted to stop watching. Every time I turned on the screen, I feel like Deontay Johnson had the ball on a quick slant or something. I mean, his routes are very, very good. I will say they treated Chase Claypool like the number 1 wide receiver. Like, they had the best corner on him the entire game.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is fair because he's amazing. But if that's what they're going to do, then Deontay Johnson's going to eat every week, and they will pepper him with targets. But I think a defense's game plan will change the next time they play, hopefully, and maybe Chase Claypool bounces back. Who knows? Probably not. I'm probably just wrong.
Yeah, I mean, I just think there are too many weapons in this offense to really like game plan to take one out of the equation and think that's going to stop the offense. Like, look. They took they try to take Claypool out and look, Juju shows up, like Juju and Deontay.
Right.
Then if you try to shut Deontay down,
nine catches, 85 yards, 14 targets for Juju, which is, I mean, right behind Deontay Johnson, really. Actually, almost, I mean, better stat line technically. So just 1 less target, and less touchdowns, obviously. So I'm not bitter.
Just 2 fewer touchdowns, just a minor detail.
It's not a big deal. It's 12 fantasy points. Who really cares, right? So what about Claypool? What do you think about Claypool moving forward?
Hold. I think you're right. Like, they were trying to shut him down. I think Claypool, like I said, like, I don't think it's normally gonna be Juju. Like, we haven't seen a week like this from Juju in how long? I don't know. But I think Claypool is going to be a viable like flex option moving forward. Like I said, I think he's that third option in the receiving core, and I just think this was a down game for him. But I don't think you're normally going to see the targets so evenly distributed between Deontay and Juju. I think it's going to be Deontay taking the majority, and then Juju and Claypool getting half and half roughly, and then Claypool hit one of those deep shots because he's not going to be facing this kind of coverage every time. I think you're right. They'll have to respect Deontay more, and they'll have to respect that entire receiving core and even Eric Ebron. Like, yeah, I think Claypool, don't go dropping him because I think he's going to be a viable flex option moving forward.
Yeah, that defense is, or that offense is pretty good, potent. I'm at the moment.
Yeah. Moving on to the Tennessee side of the ball, what did you see there that stuck out to you?
AJ Brown. I mean, 6 catches under 53 yards on 8 targets and a touchdown. That man's ridiculous.
What's super weird about AJ Brown is he's actually also in my DFS lineup. So
yeah, that's
crazy, right?
Wow. No, that's a great pick. I mean, he's been consistent every week since he's been back, and he's a good player moving forward. I really like him. Borderline wide receiver 1, yes or no?
AJ Brown, yeah. I'd put him below Lockett, but I like him as like a high end wide receiver 2.
I agree. And then Derrick Henry, 20 carries, 75 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I was watching Derrick. I just want to make a note of this before we move on. I was watching Derrick Henry, and he hadn't done well for the first half of the game. Actually, probably the first 3 quarters, he really hadn't got anything going on the ground. And I was like, just keep feeding him. You know, he gets better as the game wears on. He'll make it happen. And he did, you know, like right after I said that, he broke off like a 15-yard chunk and then another one. And I mean, he's just so good. He's
Monster.
So good.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being you're dropping him, where are you panicking on Jonnu Smith? 1 catch for 9 yards on 4 targets.
Yeah, I was about to head that direction as well. I'm not. What 10 is? I'm panicking and dropping him.
Yeah, 10 is you're just straight up dropping him.
Like 1. I'm not gonna get rid of him yet. I think this is his first game back from a little injury. I mean, Anthony Firkser, that is his name, right? Anthony. Firkser got two catches to Jonnu's 1, which is just like, it's pretty telling. You know, I don't think they're about to move away from Jonnu. He's had an incredibly productive first half of the year, and I think he'll be much better moving forward. He'll bounce back. This is just one of those. I mean, it's one of those comeback games from injury, and I think he'll have a much better next week. So do not give up on him. Do not just start taking him out of your lineup or dropping him. I think that'd be really foolish, especially with this tight end landscape. Hold on to him.
Yeah. And he's got Cincinnati next week, which you just saw the Browns dominate with their tight ends. So, I think he's just fine. Slow week coming off an injury. And you're also going to see this from him in games where he doesn't get a touchdown. Like, it's never been volume for him. He's just been a touchdown scorer, and he didn't get it in the end zone this week, and that's okay. I think he's normally a good bet for a score, and I think 2 weeks off of injury, he's going to be more productive.
Definitely. And just to throw myself under the bus one more time, I brought up Adam Humphries last week and said he might be a flex option, and he got a catch for 19 yards. So just ignore me when it comes to fantasy. I'm just here to combat Steven. Otherwise, no.
No, just wait till next week when I have all the negative karma coming my way. So next week it's gonna be you the one flaunting your picks. So
we'll see. We'll see.
Just one of those weeks for you, Zach. All right, let's move on to Detroit, Atlanta, where it was one of those weeks for Todd Gurley, who tried but failed to slide on the goal line. Man, that was crazy to watch. Like, Atlanta is losing in the most heartbreaking ways possible.
I mean, you knew it was going to happen. There's so many jokes out right now about this is Atlanta scoring a touchdown to lose a game. You know, this is just him falling forward into the end zone might have been the funniest thing I've ever seen.
I was watching on Red Zone, and I didn't really realize the context of the situation. I was like, oh my God, did he just pull a hammy or something? I didn't realize what was going on, that he was trying. I was like, why did his body just move like that? And then I checked the clock. I was like, oh, he was trying to slide down. The commentator was
Right,
talking about
his
it.
bottom half just stopped moving. His top half just like kept going. He couldn't stop himself. It was so funny.
Absolutely heartbreaking, but he still puts up a good fantasy day, especially with that accidental touchdown. Like, honestly, I think Todd Gurley's been one of those people that people don't want to believe him in him as a fantasy option, but I think he's been pretty much performing like right where he was drafted. I think people kind of looked at him as like he's either going to be boom or bust. You know what I mean? Like he's either
Right.
going to finish as a top 5 running back or he's just going to completely bottom out.
Give you like what 10 points? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's been exactly where he was drafted to be, which was interesting because I didn't think there was really a middle ground there, but he's been okay. Like he hasn't been efficient, but he's been putting up decent RB2 numbers. So if you have him, you can't really complain. Julio back in the lineup for the second straight week. What did you see in the receiving game of Atlanta that's notable moving forward?
I really like Julio. He's looking good. 8 catches, 97 yards on 9 targets. And it seems that Julio kind of gives life to the rest of the guys not named Calvin Ridley.
Definitely.
I mean, Calvin Ridley still had 7 targets, 5 catches, 69 yards, and a touchdown. And it brought Russell Gage into the mix, 6 catches, 54 yards. Hayden Hurst is able to produce 6 catches, 68 yards. So I think Julio's very good for this offense. And you know, as their team goes to show, they're going to need to throw and score points every week, apparently, because I think the moment they start letting up and give Todd Gurley 23 carries, which they did, which is an impressive number, but the moment they start trying to run the ball instead is the moment the other team starts coming back. So they really, I think maybe they change their game plan and just keep throwing the entire game because they have to.
Yeah, they really do. And man, Calvin Ridley just has a nose for the end zone. Like 5 catches, 69 yards, not great, but I feel like he's always getting a touchdown or two in every game he plays in. And I think Julio really opens that up for him, which has been nice as a Calvin Ridley manager. But I don't think it's one of those things where when Julio is back, Calvin Ridley is a non-factor. I think they can both coexist as top 12 fantasy options.
Definitely, and I think they will. And then on the lower end of that receiving core, I do think you should keep an eye on Russell Gage. He was productive with Julio earlier in the season, and I think he could get back to that status.
Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to the Lions side of the ball. Expected a bigger game from Matthew Stafford. A little bit of a bummer, but he still gets 18 fantasy points, largely due to the game-winning touchdown, his first passing touchdown of the game. Pretty crazy play. Hawkinson, broken down protection. Hawkinson plays kind of the second half of that play and grabs one in the end zone for the win as time expires. So he ends up with a 5-catch, 59-yard, 1 touchdown stat line. What are your thoughts on these Lions receivers moving forward? And is Hawkinson the real deal, or given that his touchdown came on the last play, are you not really fully buying into him?
I do think Hawkinson's the real deal. I think he's a good player. I think the Lions offense is a little icky. I don't know how else to say it. I just don't really love their offense. But again, given the tight end landscape, I mean, I'd rank Hawkinson as probably a back end tight end 1. So I mean, playable. Obviously, you're going to need to play him some weeks. And I think he has a nose for the end zone as well. You know, I think he scores a lot in this offense. If it's not him, it's Kenny G, who by the way, 6 catches, 114 yards. A big portion of those yards came on a big throw in that last drive, and a really, really nice catch. But this dude's insane.
Yeah.
If they just threw the ball to him more, oh my gosh. If they gave him the targets he deserved, he catches everything. He
had two catches in that game that I was legitimately blown away by. That one that he climbed the ladder, it literally was hitting his back, like, and came down, folded up. Like, that was insane.
Yep.
Yeah.
He's an incredible receiver. I wish they'd just give him the ball all the time.
Yeah, me too. DeAndre Swift, they were saying he'd have an expanded role coming out of the bye. Had a great game fantasy-wise, but still only 9 carries on the ground, and then does, do his thing in the passing game, 4 catches on 5 targets for 21 yards. DeAndre Swift, I think, is going to be a little bit frustrating because people want him to just be totally unleashed, but it seems that the Lions still want to keep this backfield a committee. I mean, AP still had 11 carries and a reception. So I don't think Adrian Peterson's going away, but I mean, I think the arrow is still pointing up for DeAndre Swift. I just don't think he's going to be this immediate like smash upside RB2 play that everyone wants him to be.
Right, I agree. I think I may have mentioned that last week. This might be the one thing I hit on where I said, yeah, I think he's playable this week, but like you don't want to think about him as an RB2, probably like a back end RB3, maybe RB3, just regular RB3, but he gets those receptions, but he's not going to get the bulk of the carries there for at least for a little bit. I'm hoping he does eventually, and you should definitely hold on to him. But for now, he's just probably an RB3 with maybe a little bit upside, scoring upside specifically.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, I'm ready to move on if you are.
Yep.
All right. Let's move on and talk about the next game, which will be the Browns and the Bengals. This one was a fun one. Joe Burrow absolutely balling out in this one. He threw for, let's see here, 406 yards, 3 touchdowns, and a pick. What did you see from Burrow this week, and what do you think about him moving forward?
I thought he was going to be terrific the entire season. But he's throwing the football just a lot. I mean, he threw it 60 times in the game in the time they last played. So 47's, not as much as I was hoping for, to be honest, which is crazy. I really like Joe Burrow. I really do. I think he's probably still like high end QB2. I don't think he's moved into that QB1 range yet, but you can absolutely play him in good matchups. I think he's got a lot to see still in terms of defenses. Once he plays those hard defenses, I think he might have a rough week. But he's got the receiving options to be great. So,
yeah. Speaking of those receiving options, I really think we're seeing T. Higgins become a must-start every week. I mean, caught all of his 5 targets for 71 yards and a touchdown. I think he's just so reliable. I mean, he's been really consistent. They're getting him more and more involved. Tyler Boyd is the one with the big box score here on 13 targets, but I think T. Higgins is justifiable as an every week start in fantasy. Do you agree with that?
Yes, I do. I think T. Higgins is a great athlete, and I mean his touchdown catch, he caught it and literally like he dodged one person and then just walked in. It was a really, really nice play. I think he'll continue to produce. I think about this stat line more or less is kind of what you're going to get every week. I don't think he's going to have a huge breakout game with the other 2 receivers there, but this stat line's good enough. 571 and a touchdown. We'll take that. Tyler Boyd's been very quietly seeing a crazy number of targets every week. I don't think there's been a ton of talk about him, but I think he's a great player and one you could probably go and buy, just like try and trade for. He's been great, and I think he'll continue to be that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's definitely not getting talked about enough. Interesting, though, is AJ Green getting 13 targets as well, just as many as Tyler Boyd, but only turns that into 7 catches for 82 yards. I feel like this is one of those squeaky oil gets the grease situations. Like, I think everyone saw that clip of, I don't know if you saw AJ Green on the sideline. Like, you could read his lips. He was literally saying, if you're not going to use me, then trade me.
Yeah.
Did you see that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think his usage has clearly spiked since then. I think they're trying to get him involved, whether that's to actually keep him an important part of this offense or to get him some production before the trade deadline.
That one's definitely my prediction. I think they want to show him off just a little bit. There are definitely some teams that would want him, especially if he looks good right before the trade deadline. I think this is mainly to make him look good for a trade, which is, good for fantasy owners. Probably in both scenarios, either way, they're peppering him with targets, and he's going to go to a different team, which is fine.
Yeah. I completely agree. Hopefully it goes to Green Bay. I'd be very happy as a Packers fan. Let's go ahead and talk about the Browns side of the ball. OBJ, sadly, he's one of my favorite receivers in the league. He's out for the season with an ACL tear. Jarvis Landry gets 5 catches for 48 yards on 6 targets. Rashard Higgins, though, is the guy who really steps up, catches all 6 of his targets for 110 yards. Tuck, is Rashard Higgins a guy you're targeting on the waiver wire this week? Or do you think this is more of a one-off situation where he's not going to be trustable over the course of the season?
Probably more of a one-off situation. And I don't know that I even trust Jarvis that much, honestly. Baker he had a terrific game. At least after his first 5 passes, he went like something like 18 for 18 on 4 touchdowns or something. I mean, he was insane. But you didn't see Odell getting that kind of number every week. You don't see Jarvis getting that kind of number every week. I choose something I can trust more, and the Browns have not been trustworthy as of late. This was the first game in a while where you looked at that stat line and you're like, oh, all their receivers produced. But Odell was hardly a must start, so I don't think Rashard Higgins is suddenly going to become the guy. I don't think Jarvis Landry is suddenly going to become, he's fine, and Jarvis Landry will be a fine play moving forward. I think he'll soak up a lot more targets. But in a run-first offense that is not typically that accurate, no, I'm good.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Like, a few weeks ago, we were talking about, can you start OBJ? Like, I think people are, seeing an opportunity whenever a player goes down. They're like, oh, who do I need to go out and grab to replace him? Well, if OBJ, one of the most talented wide receivers in the league, can't put up great numbers with the Browns offense, given just how heavy they are, how run first they are, and just not enough volume in the passing game to go around, I'm not really eager to go out and grab anyone of these receiving options, especially with Austin Hooper coming into his own. I know he missed this game, but when he comes back, he's going to demand a big target share. And Baker threw 5 touchdown passes, but he only attempted 28 throws. This was a high-scoring game, and they only threw it 28 times. Like, I just don't think you're ever going to see enough passing volume here to support one great receiving option, let alone 2 or 3. So I'm really out on these receivers. I don't personally want to go rush and grab anyone. I know Rashard Higgins is just going to be a popular waiver wire name, but I just don't view him as someone I want on my roster moving forward. I just don't think he has the upside.
Right, and keep in mind Nick Chubb will be back in a few weeks, and they'll be running the ball even more. So they'll.
Yeah.
Something to think 100%.
About. Yep. Anything else on that game, Tucker?
That's about it for me.
Okay. Let's go ahead and move on to our next game, and let's talk about Panthers Saints, where my boy DJ Moore had an absolute day. He has 2 touchdowns on 4 catches for 93 yards. On the other side, Robbie Anderson had 6 catches for 74 yards on 8 targets. Again, we see Robbie Anderson with the heavier target share, but DJ Moore just keeps making big plays. And I'm starting to wonder, like, I know DJ Moore started slow, and I know he's still not getting that target share that you'd like to see, but he's clearly being used in a different role this year where he's not getting all those high percentage throws. Like, they're using him deep down the field, which is resulting in these big plays. And he's like top 10 in receivers and air yards this season. I think while he's not getting the target share, I think that's okay, because I think he's just being really well used in this offense and really coming into his own under a new quarterback, a new offensive scheme with a new head coach. I think we're starting to see him like put it all together. That's 3 straight weeks with exactly 93 yards. I know in PPR leagues you're a little disappointed with the number of catches, but he's making them count, and I think he will continue to do that. Just given how much how many air yards he's seeing, and he's an important piece of this offense that they're just starting to utilize in a different way. What do you think between Robbie Anderson and DJ Moore moving forward, Tucker?
It's still Robbie Anderson for me as of right now, and I just got burned by it. I know, but
you didn't get burned too bad.
Anderson 5 targets. It was a very good game by Teddy, and frankly, another bad game by the Saints defense. I was thinking they would put it together and be a little bit better with Janoris Jenkins back. They were not. Janoris Jenkins blew the coverage for one of DJ Moore's touchdown. I mean, like they were not good. Their secondary was bad, and I think that contributed a lot to what happened. It was good to see DJ Moore get a deep throw. Like that's more convincing considering he was just getting a lot of short throws, little dump offs, screens, that kind of thing. So it was good to see him actually going downfield. And yeah, they did get a new head coach, I think a new OC as well. So like they're probably starting to get a grip on it, and DJ Moore I think will be a little bit better moving down the whatever word I'm going for season. But it's still Robbie Anderson for me because he's getting the targets that I would like DJ Moore to get. Don't get me wrong, I want DJ Moore to succeed. They're just throwing it more to Robbie Anderson. So that's where I'm at right now. In terms of the run game, did you see the?
I just want to really quick dive in and say, last week we said the same thing about his big play. Like, maybe DJ Moore just makes big plays.
But last week was a screen taken to the house, and that was
okay, great.
But that doesn't happen often. That does not happen often. If they're usually
he can do it on a screen, he can do it on a deep ball like he did today. Like I think he's just a versatile player.
Get ready. He's about to Claypool you next week. Okay, get ready.
No, DJ. I was kind of in the mindset earlier today of like maybe I should sell DJ Moore. No, I'm like in on him. I think he's just starting to mesh with this offense. And I get it. People want to be scared off by the big play, but I think he's just being used as a big play guy in addition to a decent target share. So I'll end my DJ Moore rant. Just know I'm very high on him. And I think still people are still seeing him, as a low end wide receiver 2, when in reality, I think he's going to be closer to the mid to high range wide receiver 2 throughout the rest of the season. But I digress. Let's carry on to the run game.
I see him as a mid range wide receiver 2. I will say next week bodes well with the Falcons. So no worries there. I was going to say there was a report that came out saying Mike Davis will continue to get volume once McCaffrey is back. Fun fact. So anyways, keep that in mind. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We'll talk about that a little more on another show, but that is something to keep an eye on. Mike Davis with a disappointing game nonetheless. And that's all you need to know, I guess, about the Panthers.
Yep. Moving on to New Orleans, Kamara just absolutely balling out, especially with Michael Thomas out. There's really nothing else I need to say here, honestly. I'm not buying into Jared Cook. I'm not buying into any of these temporary receiving options for the Saints. I know people are talking about Callaway. I'm not in. Like, Michael Thomas is coming back soon. Yep. I can't trust any of these guys. Emmanuel Sanders will come back from the COVID list eventually. I don't have anything to say about the Saints.
Agreed. All right, we can move on to Buffalo and the Jets.
Thank you. Efficient. Okay. Let's go. Yeah, Buffalo Bills, Jets. Dude, I talked a little bit about Zach Moss last week as maybe this is – we had this exact conversation and things kind of played out how I expected. Like, Devin Singletary had 8 carries. Zach Moss had 7, only 1 less. The difference being Moss turned that into 47 yards. Singletary turned his carries into 29 yards. And then Moss also had 3 catches in the passing game, 2 Singletary's 2. I don't know. Like, I think this is becoming a more even split. People kind of gave up on Zach Moss, but I think he deserves to be rostered for sure. And I think his role can only increase, to be honest. Singletary is just not getting it done. Are you buying into Zach Moss as like a potential second half guy? Second half of the season guy, not second half.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Not really. I'd prefer to not have either of them on my team. I think Zach Moss is a talent. However, I just don't. I'd rather have neither. I think they're going to be in a timeshare the rest of the season. I don't see anything around that changing. It very, very not so often. I guess I don't do words good today, but very. It doesn't happen often where you see a guy who's starting, then a rookie come in and completely take over that job. Not like this anyways. Not if he's not a number 1 draft pick, that kind of thing. So I see him splitting more even the rest of the way. Zach Moss might get the edge a little bit, but I don't think it's going to be like a big lean towards Zach Moss or anything like that.
Yeah, I think just given how thin a running back is and with bye weeks and everything, I think Zach Moss just has upside. I think at worst he's the 1B in a committee, which already I think deserves to be rostered just because he's involved in the passing game, involved in the red zone. Personally, I think he's going to be a second half guy that people are going to wish they had on their roster. Let's go ahead and move to the receivers. Stephon Diggs, disappointing here. Still had 11 targets, turns that into 48 yards. Cole Beasley, the star of the show, 11 catches, 112 yards on 12 targets. I'm not worried about Diggs, and I think Beasley's just proving to be an option every week. Like, he's so consistent. This is one of those rare weeks where he kind of has like an upside game. I don't think you're normally going to see that from him, but people who have him on the roster, I'm sure, excited to see that. Anything you're taking away from these receivers here?
I do think Cole Beasley is a safe play until John Brown's back. And
Sure.
he seems to be pretty hobbled right now. So Cole Beasley's been pretty consistent since. Josh Allen just had, honestly, just another bad game. Are you worried about Josh Allen?
I'm not so much worried about Josh Allen as I am, like, I think once again, like, he was a little bit overhyped in the first few weeks. You know, like the whole MVP
this is a game where you would think you would want this guy who was a quarterback one for, like high-end quarterback one for most of the season. This is a guy you'd want to ball out in a matchup against the Jets, you know?
I'm not particularly like worried about him. Like, I'm not selling Josh Allen at this point, but you know, it wasn't a terrible game. But yeah, I mean, I think maybe our expectations got a little high after his hot start. I think we've seen that even before with Josh Allen. I think he'll be somewhere in the middle moving forward. Like, I think this will be, you know, one of his worst games of the season. But I think he'll be moving forward closer to that, you know, those first games where he was having just multi-touchdown, awesome performances with that rushing upside he has. I think better days are ahead. What do you think?
Oh yeah, I agree. This will be one of his worst games probably, I think, of the season. But I do want to see him next week kind of come back. And does he have a bye next week? What's happening? I don't know. Next time he plays, I want to see him come back and be better than that. If he's not better than that, I'm going to try and sell high, I think. Well, high at that point, but try to sell him for something because somebody wants Josh Allen, I'm sure.
Yeah. On the Jets side of the ball, I don't think there's anything to talk about. Sam Darnold had a terrible game. Frank Gore and P. Ryan split the carries equally. P. Ryan got in the end zone. Whoop-de-doo. Jamison Crowder was out, so, I mean, the receiving core was a mess. But Denzel Mims, 7 targets in his first game as a rookie. Not bad. 4 catches for 42 yards. He's not someone I'm eager to roster just because of the Jets offense and Crowder was out, but definitely worth noting. Always notable when a rookie performs, especially in his first game back from injury. Are you at all looking at Denzel Mims, or do you think when Crowder gets back, he's going to be pretty much irrelevant?
Yeah, I'm not looking at Denzel Mims. Jamison Crowder, when he's healthy, is the only part I want of the Jets. Adam Gase is just running this team into the ground, and it's upsetting. But I digress. All right.
Yeah, let's move on.
Please.
Okay. If I told you the score was 25-3 Cowboys versus football team, you would have thought heading into the season it would have definitely been going the other way. Just a terrible performance by the Cowboys. Oh my gosh, Andy Dalton, the quarterback, is ruining this entire receiving core. I mean, CeeDee Lamb, RIP, Michael Gallup, he's gone. I mean, these Dalton Schultz can't get enough going. It's pretty much Zeke is the only option in this offense aside from Amari Cooper, and neither one are going to be performing anywhere near their ceilings moving forward. I think you can't even sell those guys after this week. So what do you do, Tucker, if you have those guys on your roster?
Yeah, the big problem from this game is Andy Dalton leaving with a concussion because they're going to go with this guy, Ben DiNucci, who's, I believe he's a rookie, and he's going to struggle. He's not ready for what's coming because their O-line is not good. Their O-line is really, really bad. And now they have this rookie in there. I mean, Andy Dalton struggled, and he's been a pro for years, It's going to be difficult for this offense. The only one Zeke and Amari Cooper are the only ones I can't trust at this point. CD is going to have a tough time, I think, because he likes to get those kind of deep to intermediate targets, and he's not going to have time to even run that route before this little kid is destroyed in the backfield.
He's a little kid.
I mean, odds are I'm older than him, right?
Anyways, okay, yeah, I agree. I think I hope you meet one day. I hope you meet Ben DiNucci in person, and you have to say it to his face because I
And
know
I
you will.
look up at him, and he's like a big
Yeah,
guy, and I'm like,
this man
"Hey,
is a
what's up,
professional
child?"
athlete. I gotta look up his. Let's see Ben DiNucci's height just to see. What
I'm
does
pretty
it say here?
tall. Thank God I'm pretty tall. You know.
Ben DiNucci, he's 6'2" and
Okay.
209 pounds.
I'd
So
look him in the eyes, and then he'd swallow me because we're about the same height, but he weighs a lot more than me.
I'm gonna take the professional football player in that one. All right, let's move on to the Washington side of the ball. Where better place to start than talking about Logan Thomas, who I might have mentioned as a pretty solid streamer play if you needed it. 4 catches, 60 yards, and a touchdown. He's starting to mesh with Kyle Allen. If he's not, if he's available on my waiver wire this week, I'm gonna try and grab him just as a plug and play streamer tight end when I need it. He's turning these targets into something finally. We weren't seeing that with Haskins at quarterback, but it seems like Kyle Allen has done something for him, and that's always good to see. Tucker, what do you think about Terry McLaurin's performance on 11 targets, 7 catches for 90 yards and a touchdown?
Terry's awesome for fantasy and in game. I think he's pretty much their only guy. Logan Thomas, you can make a little argument for, I guess.
A little argument. He's got 2 straight top 10 tight end weeks.
I know. I'm just bitter because you had such a good week predicting things. So Logan Thomas,
maybe I'm just good. Have you ever considered that? Maybe
I will throw it out there that they were playing Dallas, and it does make a big difference that they were playing Dallas.
Producer, can you splice in some footage of Tucker saying he's a terrible play against Dallas last week? I need that.
Oh my gosh. Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin. Terry McLaurin's good for fantasy, and I dig it. I think the big part of the Washington football team that I was very kind of shocked to see was Antonio Gibson, 20 carries for 128 yards. We both, I think, said don't play Gibson, go with J.D. McKissic instead, and boy, were we both wrong.
Yeah.
Anything to say in that regard?
I think the numbers are a little inflated given the score. I mean, Peyton Barber had 10 carries, J.D. McKissic had 5. Yeah. I don't think you're normally going to see that kind of volume from him, but, great to see that. Wish he had a little bit of involvement in the passing game. Only had 1 target, but just because, you're not going to be able to depend on this volume, so you wish you had some of the passing game work to fall back on in other weeks. But, I mean, I think Gibson proved himself. It's always good when a rookie puts up, 6.4 yards a carry. I think, maybe this is a signal to the Washington coaching staff, hey, let's get him the ball more. But I don't think he necessarily is I don't think he rose as much as he did in other people's books, just given the game script and how this was the ideal situation for him. Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Antonio Gibson, definitely an upward trend.
Sure.
I'm liking him moving forward after a game like this, but don't expect another one. I mean, not for a while anyways. The Dallas defense is tragic, and their team was just abysmal. So I don't expect to see that again in the near future, but it's a good upward trend for him.
Agreed. All right, let's go ahead and move on to our next game. We have what do we have?
Packers and Texans.
What
a game.
Oh man. Dude, I picked up Jamal Williams in desperation on waivers this week. I picked up him and Josh Kelly up just in complete desperation before the Aaron Jones injury was even a thing. Jamal Williams bailed me out this week. 19 carries, 77 yards, and a touchdown. On top of that, 5 targets, turns that into 4 catches for 37 yards. Dude, I saw when Aaron Jones was announced inactive, or even before that, when it was speculated that he wasn't going to play, way too many people were saying A.J. Dillon's the play. He's the rookie. They're going to want him, they're going to want him to get the carries. The coaching staff loves him. And that Jamal Williams was still just going to be a change of pace back. As a Packers fan, I knew that wasn't the case. I actually tweeted it out. I said, hey, don't buy into the A.J. Dillon hype. Yeah, he's a fine desperation flex given that Jones is out, but Jamal Williams is going to be the guy, and he could see north of 6 targets in this what I expected to be a barn burner. He had 5 targets, so I was close on that. But man, he had a big day, and I have to say this. Knowing how the Green Bay medical staff is so conservative, look at the next two matchups that Green Bay has: Minnesota and then San Francisco. Minnesota is an ailing team that the Packers should be able to handle easily, and San Francisco is kind of that looming NFC matchup that the Packers haven't been able to top in recent years. I mean, San Francisco dominated Green Bay last year in the NFC Championship game. I think that's kind of one of those matchups they have circled on the calendar. Personally, I think there's a decent chance that Aaron Jones is inactive this week in Minnesota, just so they can make sure, given that they're already leading on the conservative side with injuries, just so they can make sure he's absolutely 100% for San Francisco and that he doesn't have any setbacks, because given what we saw from Jamal Williams, he should be able to do just a fine job against Minnesota and get the job done and keep the train rolling. Do you agree with that take based on what you saw with Jamal Williams at running back?
I mean, I could see them doing that. I think Aaron Jones almost played this game. Obviously, it was a game time decision. It was very, very close. So it depends on how much more rest Aaron Jones really needs. You know, if he for sure needs that time, that extra week, they'll give it to him. I really do think they can just lean on Jamal Williams for another game, and they'll be just fine. Yeah, I didn't see AJ Dillon being the guy this week. I think, you know, if you've watched the Packers for a little while, the last couple of years, you'll know if Aaron Jones is out, Jamal Williams is the guy, and you should absolutely ride that. And if he's out again next week, Jamal Williams will be the guy again. So expect it.
Smash.
Yeah, definitely. Expect it, play it.
Yeah, I think just given what we saw with Davante Adams, that was kind of the exact vibe. Like when he didn't play, it was like, okay, next week he's definitely going to play. And then that was the week where they sat him out again, and he's tweeted out like kind of disgruntled that, you know, they were being too conservative with him, of course. Mm-hmm. I personally think there's a chance that Aaron Jones, we could see that again next week. Just I think in a normal circumstances, they would be like, all right, let's play him next week with Minnesota. But given that Jamal Williams, they didn't miss a step with him at running back, I think they could just be like, let's just make sure Aaron Jones is okay. Let's roll with Jamal Williams. But something to keep an eye on for.
Yeah, I definitely could see that being the case, given Davante Adams being out. That's a big deal for their offense. Whereas Aaron Jones is not as big of a deal because they do have Jamal Williams. So if they're not losing anything, they could definitely do it. And they lost something with Davante Adams, but they still did it. So I could definitely see them doing that. Yeah.
And the little cherry on top is right now the Packers front office is deciding, do we give Aaron Jones that big contract when we have Jamal Williams and Aaron Jones both becoming free agents at the end of the season? I mean, part of me thinks they let Aaron Jones go and sign Jamal Williams to a much cheaper contract. You know, he's a talented back that could fits very well into this offense. Maybe they want to give him one more week just to see what they have in him for sure as the featured ball carrier, because him and AJ Dillon could be the future rotation of this running back core, given that, you know, the Packers have other needs. David Bakhtiari at tackle. They've got other guys they need to sign a long-term contract. So that's just one more thing that could play into the decision. But, you know, as a Jamal Williams manager, I think I'm reading into it a lot more than most people. Something to keep an eye on with practice reports this week.
Yeah. Point being, don't drop him. Keep Jamal Williams on your team. Keep Jamal Williams on your team. Davante Adams, anyways, 13 receptions, 192 yards and 2 touchdowns, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. The man's insane. Play him every week. Wide receiver 1, locked in.
Yep. DFS play. I have to talk about.
Another good one for you. Yeah.
Robert Tonyan might not be a thing. 2 catches on 2 targets. Okay, Texans side of the ball. Deshaun Watson saw a game, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns. David Johnson, 14 carries for just 42 yards and a fumble. Also gets 4 catches for 42 yards and a touchdown to save the day. Randall Cobb, decent game. Actually, really solid. Randall Cobb, really solid revenge game against the Packers on 10 targets. I mean, nothing is popping off for me here. Will Fuller saves his day with the touchdown. Anything that you're making a note of here on the Texans?
I mean, they just really did their best to take away Will Fuller in this game.
Yeah. Darren Alexander is just a beast.
Yeah. I think next game we'll be back to Will Fuller. I don't think Randall Cobb will be a 10 target guy ever again, probably for the rest of the season. It doesn't happen often, and he's kind of like a 1 week wonder type of player at this point in his career. But Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller, they're still the guys there. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Agreed. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to Buccaneers Raiders, where we see the resurgence of Tom Brady, 369 yards and 4 touchdowns. This whole offense had a great day. Gronk, 5 catches, 62 yards and a touchdown. He's looking like the real deal on 8 targets. Mike Evans seems to be kind of the forgotten piece of this offense. He only had 2 catches on 2 targets. And then Rojo and Fournette, just like I said, back to splitting carries. I wasn't big on Rojo coming into this week, and looks like Fournette is just, once again, really threatening, especially in the passing game. What did you see on the Buccaneers side of the ball, Tucker?
Mike Evans was really disappointing. Scotty Miller went 6 catches, 109 yards, which you're probably not going to see again. Godwin looked very good. And this is actually something I don't think we've talked about yet on the show since we didn't have our Monday show. But Antonio Brown signs with the Buccaneers. This is obviously probably going to have a big fantasy impact for the Buccaneers. It'll be very interesting to see how their receiving options kind of shake out afterwards, because he really does fill that Godwin role pretty well. I don't know how that's going to impact him. I mean, obviously negatively, but in a big way. What do you think?
I think it hurts everyone except Tom Brady, honestly.
Yeah.
You agree with that?
They just have so many good receiving options. It was kind of difficult for me to understand why they signed an extra one, and especially of that caliber, you know. It will be very interesting to see how that shakes out, though.
They've been dealing with injuries in that receiving core between Godwin and Evans. I think they just, and even Miller and even Tyler Johnson, I believe, or Miller and who else was it? Justin Watson were banged up. So yeah, I think this is just, even Gronk, I think, might have a harder time carving out catches with AB in the mix. But I think Tom Brady, especially after what we saw this week, the arrow is pointing way up for him.
Yeah, he will definitely be the main benefactor here. So Mike Evans, where are you ranking Mike Evans right now?
Low, so low.
Yeah.
Mike Evans is so, I think Mike Evans is not, I don't even know where to rank him. I don't think I am like talking about him. Like, to me, he's not a thing anymore, especially when AB comes in. Like, Mike Evans is done. I think that's it. Like, I don't see Mike Evans having any clear path to targets in this offense. Do you?
Yeah, I mean, I agree there. I have him ranked really, really low, and I don't know if I can trust him. I mean, I don't think I'd be starting him at this point, and it's gonna be tough to sell him after only 2 targets. It stinks, man. It stinks because he's been one of the top receivers for years and years, and I don't know. I don't think he can produce in this offense. I don't.
I think the only
Gronk's going to be the guy in the end zone now. I mean, it's that connection's being established again. He's finally getting back into, playing shape.
Yeah, I think the only receiver I like in this offense when AB gets here is Godwin. I think Godwin can still be okay. Tony F, what's up, man? Thoughts on playing Lamar versus Steelers or Herbert versus the Broncos? I'm going Lamar. I know it's a tough matchup, but he's fresh off a bye. I know his knee was bothering him a few weeks ago, so he's expected to be fully healthy. I love Herbert, but that Broncos defense is not an easy play either. So personally, I love Lamar against the Steelers. I think obviously it's a tough game, but I think one that could be pretty high scoring. And I think you start your studs. I know if you got both, you're pretty set moving forward because Herbert's looked great, but I'm playing Lamar. What about you, Tuck?
Yeah, I think I agree there. Herbert did look really good, so it's going to be really tempting to play him again against the Broncos. The Broncos are a bad team, but their defense is good. Their offense is terrible, but their defense is very good. Steelers defense also very good, but I think you get that rushing upside and just that upside of Lamar in general. So I think Lamar's probably the start there. And then, hope he gets a nice rushing touchdown to add to that.
Yeah, completely agree. Appreciate the question, Tony. Smash that subscribe button. You'll be our fourth ever subscriber, which has us hyped. You can hit us up for questions anytime. Appreciate you chiming in. Where were we talking? We're talking about, I think Godwin will be fine. Like, I don't think he has as much upside, but if there's one receiver I like still with AB in the mix, it's Godwin, and it's definitely not Evans.
Yeah,
Got you,
agreed.
Tony.
Agreed.
Okay.
So real quick, we need to touch on Fournette or Ronald Jones. Who do you like?
Fournette, dude, look at his involvement in the passing game. I believe he had
Yeah.
6 catches.
7 targets, 6 catches, 47 yards in the passing game alone. Meanwhile, 11 carries to Ronald Jones, 13. Yeah, I mean, the passing game is the key part here, especially in PPR. I mean, you want to ride that, right? I mean,
I hate to beat a dead horse, Tucker, but I think we had this conversation with.
Yeah, we did. Be
pro.
quiet. We had the conversation. We had the
You
conversation.
were pro Rojo. I was anti Rojo for this exact reason. Like, I hate to be that guy rubbing it in, but I think you were pro Rojo. I was anti Rojo because of the Fournette effect. Is that right?
Yeah, I think actually because of the passing game, in fact, and you're
I talked about him getting maybe around 6 catches.
I think you called that one very well. Yeah, that's a good call on your part. I mean, I don't get them moving away from Rojo necessarily because he did have a very productive game the game before, and they were just like this game. They're like, no, we're gonna get Leonard Fournette now because he's healthy. It's just like just rob him of what he earned, man. Just rob him.
I just think Leonard Fournette's better. But
Fournette is better. He is better. But but Rojo produced in his absence, so it's upsetting.
He's been great. Rojo's been great, no doubt about it.
But it's upsetting to see him just lose that because a guy became healthy. I don't know.
You saw that we've been talking about Rojo so much that you saw my autocorrect. I was typing something completely unrelated, and it changed to Rojo.
It said something like tonight, and it became Rojo.
Okay. Anyways, yeah, I've got to really call you out on my good takes for your bad takes this week because I know it's not going to be like this ever again. It could be totally flip script next week, so I'm not going to let up on you now. Dude, I have so little to say about 49ers Patriots. Like, just so little to say. Jeff Wilson had a great game, but now he's injured. George Kittle obviously had a whatever game just because the Patriots tend to stop the best option. Cam Newton had a terrible game. Nothing happened on the Patriots offensive side of the ball. And, with Deebo Samuel out, I think, Brandon Ayuk's probably the best option on the San Francisco side of the ball. Like, that is my only takeaway from this game. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about the run game for the 49ers? That's the only thing I really want to touch on.
I think it's next man up, except for some reason they don't like Jerick McKinnon anymore. Like, what happened? Jerick McKinnon was the poster child for this offense. When Mostert originally went down, like, they're talking about McKinnon, giving him tons of carries, tons of work in the passing game, and they're saying they want to arrest him because
he was this guy that was signed for a big contract like just a few years ago, and suddenly they want to move on. Yeah, they don't seem very interested in him at all. Three carries. I mean, so is JaMychal Hasty the next guy?
I said it last week. Like, I'm not big on Hasty just because, I mean, Tevin Coleman's coming back. Jerick McKinnon is still there, even though they're not giving him the work. But any given week, they could decide to because he's not injured or anything. If Tevin Coleman doesn't come back this week and it's Hasty and McKinnon in a committee, okay, fine. Hasty could be a good play. But think about this, like, you have Coleman coming back, and then Mostert in a couple weeks will be back too. And then eventually Jeff Wilson. So, like, I don't think Hasty is this league-winning pickup. I think he's more of a desperation play if you need a running back this week, and that's still a big if because I don't think he's anywhere close to a guarantee. So, yeah, he's looked pretty good, but, he's not heavily involved in the passing game or anything. So I don't know that there's any huge upside there. But, I mean, if he's one of 2 options in that backfield, yeah, I'll take it. That's a good running scheme that they have going. What about you?
Yeah, about the same. I think he's a great waiver pickup this week. Because if somebody's going to be the guy, it looks like it's going to be him. Jeff Wilson went down, and he's probably not going to play next week, I assume. And Mostert's not coming back. Tevin Coleman, we'll see. They may rush Tevin Coleman back, but I think they like what they saw in Hasty, and I think they just ride Hasty next week. So I think he's a good waiver pickup for sure.
Okay, respect. All right, let's get as far away from this game as we can.
Yes.
Brendan Ayuk, great waiver pickup, by the way, with Deebo Samuel out. I think he's going to be good as long as Samuel's out. Okay, let's move on these last 3 games real quick. Chiefs, Broncos. What did you see on the Chiefs side of the ball here, Tucker, that's notable with Le'Veon Bell in the mix for the first time?
Clyde found the end zone, so it made his stats look a little bit better, but he did lose carries almost to everyone. It was kind of a weird game in terms of running. He only had 8 carries and 4 targets. Le'Veon Bell got 6 targets or six carries, which is a little concerning. But I mean, it was kind of a dull game, so they may have just kind of been. I don't know. I feel like that when the Chiefs get up, they just kind of like mess around and have fun. So honestly, but it wasn't a particularly great game from anyone on the offense. So I'm not gonna read into that much, but their defense is really what carried them this week. So their offense didn't really get to get going on a lot of plays.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can read into the run game too much yet. I think you kind of got to just take a step back and see what you see next week, because their defense was what it was about this week.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think my only takeaway on the offense side of the ball is I think this is what we were worried about with Edwards-Helaire. I mean, Le'Veon Bell gets 6 carries. He doesn't get any targets in the passing game, but this was literally his first game action for the Chiefs. I think his role can only increase personally. And I think Edwards-Helaire, his volume's in danger. I think he's definitely taking a hit, and I think they're both going to be relegated to Edwards-Helaire being a low-end RB2 flex play and Le'Veon Bell being a pretty risky flex play, especially if he doesn't see more involvement in the passing game moving forward. So that's where I stand on those guys.
Yeah, I think I do see Clyde getting a lot more carries on a normal basis, probably like 14-ish, and Le'Veon probably about where he is at 6. I think Le'Veon got involved a little bit later in the game when they had a lead, and they were like, "Let's see what we got here. Let's try him out in game," and he did pretty well. 6 for 39. I mean, so maybe they use him more, but I still see it being Clyde's job. Like I said, around 14 carries, probably a couple more targets on a normal basis too.
Okay. All right. Well, let's go to the Broncos side of the ball. I mean, not much to write home about here. I mean, honestly, I don't have anything to say. Actually, I legitimately have nothing to say on the Broncos. Like, there's no big fantasy takeaways for me here.
I mean, Melvin Gordon until he inevitably gets suspended for his DUI. So
grim outlook.
Yeah, not great for the Broncos.
I mean, Philip Lindsay got injured, I believe, so Melvin Gordon's going to be startable until if and when the league steps in and suspends him. I've heard 3 games being thrown around. But it sounds like he's going to have no suspension from the Broncos. He handled it well within the organization. Fant with a slow return from injury to be expected. I'm not taking away anything else here.
Right, same.
Let's move on. Thank goodness. Jags, Chargers, Justin freaking Herbert. Herbert, Tony F., you got to be happy, man. You got to be happy you picked up Justin Herbert because this man is balling out. 347 yards, 3 touchdowns. Hard to believe he was ever the backup quarterback for this team. He's really targeting Keenan Allen. Looked at him 13 times. Allen gets 10 catches for 125 yards. Unfortunately, that meant Mike Williams only had 3 targets, caught 1 for 4 yards. And then on the ground, Joshua Kelly leads the team in rushes with 12, and Justin Jackson only gets 5 carries on the ground. What's your takeaway with this Chargers offense under Justin Herbert?
I mean, Keenan Allen's going to benefit every single week. That's the guy he kind of locks in on pretty consistently, and he's a great route runner, a great player, so that's going to be pretty productive. I think the big part about Justin Herbert is his rushing upside. I mean 9 carries, 66 yards on the ground for Herbert. Plus, I mean, 347 through the air. I'm not taking that away from him because that's insane. But the big takeaway for me is in the rushing game once again. Joshua Kelly, 12 carries to Justin Jackson 6, and I do think that was primarily due to Justin Jackson being a near game time decision. I think it's going to flip flop back to Justin Jackson next week after some time off. I mean, such a limited role after last week, having a bigger role and like being a benefit to the team in doing so. Whereas Josh Kelly, 12 carries for 29 yards. That's not very exciting. If I'm the Chargers, I'm not going to be like, yeah, that's a guy we should give more carries.
Justin Jackson had 5 carries for 12 yards though, so the question has to be asked, Tucker.
But again, I think he was limited in this game, which is probably the reason for that. I don't think they were looking at him being amazing this week just because of his injury, anyways.
I just have one quick question for you, and answer as honestly as you possibly can. Like, that's all I'm asking for you.
Okay.
Do you think you're at all influenced by wishful thinking, given that this past week you had Justin Jackson and Josh Kelly on your roster and you dropped Josh Kelly? Are you worried that that's influencing you at all? Maybe some wishful thinking that this was a fluke week and that Josh Kelly won't be as involved moving forward?
No, I don't think it's wishful thinking. Or even bias. I really think it's Justin Jackson here. I mean, he's been more productive, and he was seriously like almost didn't play, and you know this because you had Josh Kelly, so you were very much hoping Justin Jackson was going to sit, and he didn't. However, I do think he was limited because he was going to be. It's very clear from the week before that he was going to be more of the guy than Joshua Kelly, and I think this week kind of was an injury thing.
Yeah, I definitely have the wishful thinking in favor of Joshua Kelly. So I definitely think you're right. I think Justin Jackson's normally going to have a bigger role. That being said, I think Joshua Kelly, what's encouraging about him is 5 catches on 5 targets. Like, if you're going to have a part of a split backfield, you love to see someone getting involved in the passing game just as a nice little floor. So I'm not sure he'll get that many catches every week, but I do think Joshua Kelly could have flex value in good matchups.
Yeah, I will say, while I'm happy for the Chargers, and I think they played a good game, and Herbert did a great job, they barely ran the ball for most of the game. I mean, I kept looking. I was like, is Justin Jackson hurt? Is Joshua Kelly hurt? Because neither of them are getting the ball. It was kind of a weird game in terms of running, by the way.
Yeah.
Anyways.
On the Jags side of the ball, dude, I dropped Laviska Shenault. That one hurts me. You just never, I don't think there's any consistent, even DJ Chark had 1 catch on 7 targets. Outside of DJ Chark, I don't know that there's a guy you can consistently start among these pass catching options for Jacksonville. You mentioned Keelan Cole. He also had 1 catch for 12 yards. Chris Conley, 1 catch for 28 and a touchdown. There's so many different guys that go off on a given week that I feel like you can never trust one of them. And while Shenault is, performing great as a rookie, I don't know that he's any longer on the uptrend in terms of potential. I think maybe we see him capped as a 7 catch for 70 yard ceiling guy with maybe a touchdown thrown in there, just because of how they're utilizing him. They're spreading the ball out. Even DJ Chark isn't getting fed as much as he should be. So that's where I stand. I had to drop Shenault. What's your thought on this Jags offense moving forward?
Yeah, James Robinson. That's their offense right there.
Yeah.
Gardner didn't get benched, which is exciting. And I Lord, I hope he doesn't get benched. If they bench Gardner Minshew, I don't know what's going on there.
Who's next?
Yeah, I don't. It's like. What's his name? I don't. It's every time he's the backup somewhere. Anyways, I can't think of his name at the moment. If you got it, hit me up.
Josh McCown?
No, it's not Josh McCown, but it's that kind of player. What's his name? I'll figure it out. He was the Browns guy. He was the Patriots guy. He's been all over the place.
Oh, Brian Hoyer.
No, it's actually not Hoyer. He's very Hoyer-esque. Don't worry about it. Mike Glennon. That's who it is.
Oh, Mike Glennon. Okay.
He just reminds me of Brian Hoyer so hard. It's just not exciting. Anyways, if you think Mike Glennon can do a better job than the mustache, you got another thing coming. James Robinson though is he's a wide receiver, running back 1 for me. Moving forward, I think DJ Chark. Did DJ Chark get hurt? Because he. It's an abysmal stat. I mean, 7 targets for 7 targets, 1 catch. That is just not disappointing offense.
Yeah, James Robinson is the guy to own. Nobody else is living up to expectations, but DJ Chark is normally going to be a reliable option. After that, not counting on anybody. Let's move on to our last game to discuss, Tucker. Yeah, Bears-Rams. This was Monday Night Football. Rams dominated this one. Thought the Bears might have had a chance at a comeback late there when they had the scoop and score, or was it the pick six? I believe it might have been a scoop and score.
Yes, it was a Robert Woods fumble. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I thought maybe they had a chance at a miracle there. nothing happening with the Rams, putting a ton of pressure on Nick Foles. Bears side of the ball, you're seeing the normal inefficiencies with David Montgomery. Like, he's getting so much volume, which keeps him viable, but he's doing next to nothing with it. But 5 catches in the pass game, you'll take that in PPR leagues. Jimmy Graham, 6 targets, 5 catches for 31 yards. Like, I think he just moved his way. When he doesn't get a touchdown, he is disappointing, but he has a decent floor. He's seen 5 targets in every game with Nick Foles at a minimum. And, he's a common red zone threat. So I think Jimmy Graham is just a low-end tight end 1 option. Like, I think he's surprised people that with his consistency, he's getting, roughly 7 or 8 points minimum a game. So pleasantly surprised by him. Disappointed by Allen Robinson, of course. Tough matchup with Jalen Ramsey. Any takeaways you have on the Bears side of the ball?
Disappointing game from Allen Robinson, but he's going up against Ramsey. Yeah. That's about it. There's not a whole lot more.
Yeah, agreed. And do you agree on Jimmy Graham? Do you think he's a good tight end 1, fringe option?
Yeah, I think you got to think about him in the tight end 1 conversation. He's producing every single game, and receptions are key, especially in PPR, and you need a tight end who gets those, which is, if he gets this type of volume, hard to say no.
Yeah, and worth noting, he has the revenge game against New Orleans next week, and they've given up the most fantasy points to tight ends this season. So I think he's a good start next week. On the Rams side of the ball, dude, Cam Akers was zero touches. Like, what's the deal with this Rams backfield? Like, what Cam Akers, he was last seen in week 5 with a 10 carries for 61-yard performance, and now he's totally phased out of the offense. It's Malcolm Brown with 10 carries, Darrell Henderson with 15. I guess they just don't want to get Akers involved. I don't know why. Do you have any desire to roster Cam Akers, or are you totally out?
Yeah, I've been saying this. I just don't like the Rams running backs. I think Darrell Henderson at this point, he's going to get carries, which is encouraging. But the other 2, I think I'm staying away from. I think Darrell Henderson's a good start if you need him. But otherwise, no thanks. Honestly, I'm kind of leaning that way with the receivers as well for the Rams. Robert Woods and Cooper Kupp, those are big names. But it is sorry. As a Robert Woods owner, it is painful to watch that team play. It is just painful. Jared Goff is inaccurate. They don't get the targets they need. None of them do, because they spread the ball out so much. They run all these like little nifty run plays, that kind of thing. It is just painful to watch this team play if you have any of their fantasy players. And I think after this week, I'm going to start looking to sell Robert Woods on the name value. Because it's not someone I want on my team anymore. It's just very frustrating to watch.
Yeah, maybe bank on a good game against Miami next week and then look to sell.
Right.
All right. Well, Tuck, I know you got to go. This was a fun one. Tony F., thanks for tuning in. Our one viewer, loyal, we appreciate you. Tucker, this was fun. Any final thoughts as we wrap up week 7?
Before we wrap up, what are your top 3 waiver pickups this week?
Brandon Ayuk, I think, is a solid pickup. Chase Edmonds, if he's available, but I know he's not going to be. So, give me Richard Rodgers at tight end. Good hold until Goddard and potentially Ertz come back. And then also I want Logan Thomas at tight end. Justin Herbert shouldn't be available anywhere. Trying to think of any other big options.
Any Ravens running backs?
Yeah, J.K. Dobbins, if he's been dropped, scoop him up. Mark Ingram's questionable for this week. I definitely think coming out of the bye, Dobbins could have a bigger role. So, yeah, I think my favorite personal one is Dobbins. If you need help with tight end, Rodgers, Logan Thomas. And then lastly, Brandon Ayuk at wide receiver. What about you, Tucker?
I'm looking at Carlos Hyde if he's healthy, and Carson doesn't seem to be. Chase Edmonds definitely. JaMychal Hasty, I think, is probably my third running back, and then Gus Edwards after that. Not J.K. Dobbins. I think I'm a Gus Edwards guy. But
yeah, dude, I saw. I woke up to the news that you picked up Gus Edwards and that Art Ingram was still not a lock to play this week. I'm shocked that you went Edwards over Dobbins. I guess I prefer the receiving role of Dobbins and the upside of the rookie, but Edwards has looked great, and he's actually produced more than Dobbins, so I totally understand the pick, and that'll be a fun one to see how it plays out the rest of the season.
Yeah, definitely.
All right. Tuck, I'll see you for our our preview of Week 8.
Sounds good.
All right, we'll talk to you guys later.
Peace.
Peace.